We want to build the #1 international baseball league.
Oh, what a catch! What a catch, baby!
Like I said, I feel blessed.
The pitcher grabbed by Schlitter goes for the force of the plate.
Ground ball, double play, game over. Wow!
This is a money ball, gentlemen, and this.
Oh, money ball!
What's going on, everyone? We are back at it again with another episode of the Baseball United podcast, the premier voice of international baseball. I'm your host, Liam Skiffington. Today, we are going to be joined by another one of our co-owners here at Baseball United. This man has been a MLB All-Star. He's been a World Series champion. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Matt Barnes. Matt, great to see you. How's everything been going? I know you're a free agent right now, so how's the downtime been for you so far?
You know, honestly, it's been awesome. Obviously, I had surgery kind of the middle of last year, so missed out on the second half, really. Went into the offseason, rehab and everything went really well. Came into the season and joined the Nats and made the Nats team. But truthfully struggled for probably like 6 months. Stuff really wasn't there. And due to a number of different things, ended up getting released probably 2 months ago. I kind of had some decisions to make, right? On one hand, it was like, you know, do I want to continue to play right now? Probably have to go to the minor leagues. The other one was, do I just kind of go home and hang out for a little while and then kind of evaluate whether or not I want to keep playing? And for me right now, going home and hanging out with my family. I got a almost 7-month-old. Never had a summer at home before. So truthfully, I went home, been hanging out here. It's been awesome and enjoying the time off and really just kind of soaking it in. And truthfully, the first summer minus COVID that I've been home in, I don't know, 15 to 20 years. So really just kind of enjoy that. Been working out and tossing a little bit and definitely going to start training soon to come back and play again next year. But kind of taking a little time right now just to enjoy it.
So it seems like right now you're kind of a little bit away from the stresses of baseball, but I know you got to still be stressed out, a 7-month-old at home. And I know that it looks like you're adding an addition to your house. Is that accurate?
We are not an addition. We're doing a patio out back. So we gutted our whole patio and I'm kind of overseeing the project. But yeah, we gutted it. We're doing, a covered outdoor space, chimney, kitchen, the whole nine. So it's a big project that we started, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago now. So they're outside right now.
When's the expected done date?
It's a great question. So luckily the guy's doing a lot of the work on my boys from high school. I've known him for 20 years. And when we started the project, I said I need it done by Thanksgiving. We host every year and we got 30 some odd people coming this year. So I need this to be done so I can kick some people outside.
There we go. So, Matt, you grew up in Connecticut. You mentioned your boys from high school. You grew up in Connecticut.
Yep.
Did you grow up a Red Sox fan, Yankees fan? What was your baseball life like growing up?
Yeah, crazy enough, I grew up a diehard Yankees fan. Where I live in Connecticut, I'm in the southern portion of Connecticut, right? So I'm an hour and 15 minutes from Yankee Stadium and was always, 2.5, 3 hours from Boston. So my dad's company had season tickets, so we would always go down there. My uncle was a huge Yankee fan, so kind of all of that together ended up growing up a huge Yankee fan. And then obviously going to Boston for a number of years.
They say Connecticut's kind of split half Red Sox fans, half Yankees fans. Were a lot of your friends, because of the area you grew up in, Yankees fans as well?
Yeah, most of them probably. There were definitely your Red Sox fans too. That line to me is kind of like Hartford, right? Anything north of Hartford is all New England, right? It's like Bruins, Celtics, Patriots, and Red Sox. And then you get down below, and then you've got all New York. There's 8 of them, right? And then you even see like, what is it? You have it's like Yankees, Knicks, Rangers, Giants, and then it's Mets, Jets, Islanders, and Nets. So like it's typically like they kind of follow the same path.
What does your other fandom look like throughout the other sports?
So for football, I'm a big Giants fan. Love football. I sit in my basement every Sunday and watch Red Zone for 8-9 hours, right? I think it's 7 hours of commercial free, but So football, I'm Giants. Basketball and hockey, I never really followed a ton. I love playing basketball and I love college basketball, right? Going to UConn, I'm a diehard UConn fan. But NBA and NHL, I never really followed. So I root for the Celtics and the Bruins just because the amount of time I spent in Boston, but not in any fashion of like diehard way. Like I watched a little bit of the Celtics in the finals, but like when they won, I was like, that's awesome. If they lost, I would have been like, oh, well, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have been, it's not crazy to me.
Got it. You're not losing your mind if the
No,
Celtics are
not
losing.
on those. Football's a little different. Giants have been making it a little stressful the last couple of years, but that's all right.
So, Matt, you attended the University of Connecticut from 2009 to 2011. What went into your decision to attend UConn? Were you always kind of like a homebody? Is that why you want to be close to home, or what was it?
Yeah, so I wasn't like heavily recruited by any big time schools coming out of college or coming out of high school, excuse me. I had mostly every Northeast school, right? I had offers from, or at least could have gotten an offer from. But when you talk about your big time, at that point was, Virginia, Clemson, LSU, kind of those big time schools, North Carolina. I didn't have any offers. I went down to Virginia and I went to one of their camps that they host. And I just wanted a chance at playing at the ACC, right? I was like, let me go down and see what happens and whatnot. Ironically, I got called into the office. I think it was Brian O'Connor, I think was the head coach at the time. Called him into the office and was like, I've never recruited anybody out of a camp before, but I want you to come here and play for us. And I was like, sick. All right. And I loved Virginia. Campus was beautiful. Program was obviously awesome. That was when Danny Holtzman was there too, so it would have been really cool. But going into my freshman year was when the NCAA put in the 35-man roster limitations. So he was like, I have a full roster, so I don't have a spot right now. He was like, if you can wait till the spring, hopefully I can make a spot, but I want you to come here. And I was like, well, I can't do that. I'm not going to sit here and wait, right? So for me, it ended up coming down to St. John's and UConn. And the two biggest deciding factors were for UConn were, one, I knew what kind of team that they had. I knew that they were pretty good the year before. I knew that Michael was there and he had an incredible year. I think he might have been like a freshman All-American. Or Big East Rookie of the Year. So he had a really good year. I knew that Springer was going there, and Springer and I had played together in summer ball prior to going to UConn. We both played for Team Connecticut. So him and I were buddies, and kind of had an idea of like what the program was going to be, right? And so knowing that we had a chance to kind of help take a program to the next level was really cool to me with the guys that were there and the guys that were coming in. And then truthfully, like the biggest piece of it was probably like, if for whatever reason I couldn't play baseball anymore, right? If I got hurt or something happened and whatnot and I wasn't playing, where would I want to be at school? And the answer was undoubtedly UConn over St. John's.
So, Matt, you also played for legendary coach Jim Penders, who
Yep.
I believe he won the Coach of the Year in, I want to say, 2010 and 2011, if that sounds right.
In the Big East, yeah.
And you mentioned you're a big college basketball fan. You're obviously a fan of UConn, so you're definitely familiar with Dan Hurley.
Yep.
Dan Hurley recently said a couple months ago that Jim Penders is one of the best coaches he's ever been around. What was your experience like with Jim Penders?
Yeah, Jimmy was awesome. We had a great coaching staff. And when I was there, Jimmy was like, in kind of relative to now, was kind of in like the earlier stages of his head coaching career, right? Because this is now 15 years ago, right? From when I got there. But he's really good about like community engagement, pushing his players, hard work, like kind of doing everything the right way, right? Focusing on the little things. It's not about me. It's about us and the program that we're building collectively together, right? And so I think that UConn, and I don't know, well, they have the turf field now, so it doesn't really matter. But like when I was there, it was all dirt, and we didn't have we had the dirt and grass field, and we didn't have running water out on the field, and we had just bleachers. So it was very like, it wasn't this beautiful facility that it is now, right? So we had 6 a.m. tarp poles, we had shovel in the field. So it was this like sense of like taking pride in like the greater sense of like what we're doing rather than, it's me versus everybody else. And I think that really kind of played a role in why, I'm still really good friends with a lot of the guys that I played with, and why you have just kind of a factory that's turning out professional players left and right on a yearly basis.
Matt, so the year you were drafted in 2011, you won the Big East Player of the Year. What were some of the conversations like pre-draft with some of the teams you were in contact with after that big year?
Oh man, they were kind of like the standard conversations. It wasn't anything crazy. You had an idea of who was interested in you and who wasn't. But a lot of them just they talk about you. What do you do off the field? Family and they try to get to know you as a person rather than, I mean, they know what you can do on the field. They've watched you enough, right? I mean, they've talked to other coaches and whatnot, but like a lot of it and a lot of what these scouts talk about or have conversations with you about are, they try to go deeper than what can you do between the lines, right? How do I get a sense of like, what is his work ethic like really like? I know that he's a 20-year-old kid and, that's great and that might sustain him here, but like, there's a level of work ethic that has to go into this to actually continue success and to continue to improve, right? And as the levels get harder and harder, competition gets better. So how do you, right? So they try to dive as deep as possible to try and like find out what's inside, which is kind of crazy. As a 20-year-old kid talking to these people, I'm like, I don't know, I just want to play ball.
Yeah, exactly. So you were taken 19th overall in the 2011 MLB Draft. Yep. By the Boston Red Sox. What was that like for you to be drafted by your favorite team's rival?
Honestly, it was kind of crazy. And I wasn't even watching the draft. So the night that we had a draft, the night that the draft was that year, we were in a winner-take-all game against Clemson in the regional. So I found out that I was drafted because my buddy in the stands told me. Like, I had no idea. We were in the middle of a game, right? So but my first response was like, man, that's all right. Like initially I was like, man, I've been a Yankee fan my whole life and like not a Red Sox fan. And now I'm going to play for the Red Sox. But that thought was probably for like 4 seconds. And then I was like, this is super sick. Like, I'm so pumped to be going to Pro Bowl, like super fortunate. And then I'll tell you what, man, like looking back on my career with the Red Sox, the way that they handled everything, the way that they treat you, the professional nature of the organization. I mean, I wouldn't have traded playing for them for anything. I mean, it was incredible. And I still talk to, I'm friends with half the staff in the front office there, still talk to them. It's truly a family. And they were nothing short of amazing for the entire time that I was there.
So you might not know this about me, Matt. I'm a huge Red Sox fan. So getting you on the show, I was fired up this morning. So I followed your entire career, obviously. So in 2014, you were called up. Yep. What do you remember about that day?
So we were in the AAA playoffs. I think the day before.
This was still in Pawtucket, right?
Yeah, this is when we were in Pawtucket, not Worcester. So we had just finished our first round of the AAA playoffs. I want to say we were in Syracuse, maybe, and we won the first 2 games, and we were like, we're out. And we hopped on a bus and drove back that night rather than waiting and coming back the next day. The next day, I think we had practice on a Sunday, and I go back to my apartment, and it's like 5 o'clock. I'm sitting there having a beer, watching football, and my manager's calling me, and I'm like, I just saw you 2 hours ago. Like, why are you calling me? Right? That was like the first thing. I'm like, at no point in my mind did I think I was getting called up. Like, I was throwing the ball well, but from what I had seen, guys typically don't get called up when the AAA team's in a good postseason run. Like, you kind of stay there and try to win it, right? Especially with 2 weeks left. So, and this is when the AAA season ended before the big league season.
Yep.
Because now they end the same time, right? But this is like the AAA season ended a month beforehand. So he called me and he was like, hey, you're going up to the big leagues. And I was like, get out of here. I was like, what do you really want? And he was like, you're going up. And I was so immediately, I called my parents. And for me, and then it ended up being an awesome first experience because Pawtucket's only 45 minutes from Boston. The team was at home on Monday. So they were like, hop in your car and just drive over. So I literally just got up at, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was on Monday, went to the field, grabbed my stuff, and drove 40 minutes to Boston and was there on Monday.
What was it like when you finally became a big leaguer? Like, what was your welcome to the big leagues moment?
Probably my first game when the first 3 batters I faced, 2 of the first 3 were Adam Jones and Nelson Cruz, and they were standing in the box, and I was like, oh boy. These a little different than the AAA hitters I was facing last week.
They were right in the middle of their prime then, too.
Yeah, Chris Davis, when he was hitting 50 a year, Manny Machado. I mean, I was like, Ryan Flaherty, Matt Wieters. I was like, good Lord. I was like, here we go. I think the Orioles won the division that year in 14.
Yep.
They were good.
Yeah, they had some elite young talent too, and the perfect mix of young talent and older veterans. So Matt, you became a mainstay in Boston's bullpen for the following 8 seasons. Let's dive into the 2018 World Series team a little bit. Yeah. What was special about that team? Why in your opinion were they so successful?
Yeah, I think we had a really good combination of young talent, like superstar level talent. And we had a ton of like really successful, established veteran guys. So we had there was a very well-known presence in the clubhouse of who were the leaders in the clubhouse, right? And you had your Porcello, Sale, Mitch, Price, Kinsler ended up coming over. We had these guys that were older, been around, had won, right? And kind of brought this. I mean, JD Martinez came over, right? So we have these guys, or was there and came over a year or 2 before, but we had these guys that had been around and knew what work ethic was, knew what it took to get to the next level, to sustain success for an extended period of time, right? And then you had guys who were coming up. Now, Bogey had come up a handful of years before that, right? But in the 2 to 3 years prior to that, you had Vasquez comes up, Jackie came up in 13 with Bogey at the start, but you get Mookie, you have Benintendi, you have Devers, right? So now you start adding all of these pieces together, right? Eddie Rodriguez, and now you've got Christian Vasquez, and now you've got this really good combination of the young and the old, and I say old, and they weren't old, but they had been around in the league for 8 to 10 years already, right? But they were 28. Just right. Priscilla had 10 years in the league. He was 29. I'm like, Jesus, it's unbelievable.
Crazy.
But so you have that kind of one piece of it, right? The other 2 pieces are a bunch of us came up together in the minor leagues, which I think is a huge part of that. We had gone through that grind and we had figured out, and we were boys coming up, right? So when you get there, there isn't this big shift. And in 16 and 17, we were all kind of there together as well. Won the division, but lost in the postseason. So we kind of gained that incredible experience. So once we add a couple more pieces over the course of those couple years, we get to 18, and it was something just clicked. It was crazy. I remember we started the year 17-2, I think it was. And we were out in LA, and I think that was Shohei's first year. And I remember Mookie hits a leadoff homer off of Shohei, and we ended up beating the Angels in a 3-game series. We outscored them 35-5 to go to 17-2. And I was it was the first and only time in my career that I was sitting there after the game, and I was I genuinely don't know if we'll lose again. I know that's such a ridiculous statement, 19 games into 162, but I was I just don't know who could beat us. I was I don't know, right? So we kind of just keep going. Now, we were very lucky because, a number of things have to go right throughout the course of a season for you to even get to the postseason, let alone have a chance to win a World Series, right? We stayed healthy the whole year. We never had any major injuries or any setbacks. And if anybody did go down, somebody seamlessly stepped in and just played right away. Oh, how could I forget? Oh, that Pedroia was on that team. How could I? He didn't play a ton because of the knee, but was there every day.
In the clubhouse, right? Yeah.
Was there every day, right? And his experience, right, from 07 and 13 are invaluable. So you just we got lucky in that sense, right? And then you get to the postseason, and obviously doesn't matter how good you are. You've seen it over the course of however many years. Like you have to have luck to win the World Series. It doesn't like the best team doesn't win it every year, right? That's just the way that the game is. So like you look at things like Benintendi making the dive and catch in Houston with the bases loaded, or Eduardo Nunez hitting the pinch hit go ahead or the pinch hit 3-run homer at Fenway when we were up by 1 but puts us up 4 to give us breathing room, or Mitch Moreland's pinch hit homer off Madsen at Dodger Stadium to get us within 1, or put like all of these things, you know what I mean? Like, and I could go on about another 5 or 6 of them, but like all of these things just kind of happen. And next thing you know, here we are.
So it was a combination of chemistry, staying healthy, and then just a dash of luck in there.
Yeah, of course. There's always going to be luck with that many games. But like,
right.
We never, and you talk to anybody who's really won it, like, we could be down 5 runs in the 9th, and there was zero doubt in our mind that we were going to win the game. Just didn't matter. Didn't matter. No,
that's one thing.
But like, it doesn't matter. It was like, okay, well, he's going to get on base. He's going to rip a double. This guy will walk and he hits a homer. We're tied. We're back in it. Let's go. And it was like, it was just a thing that happened.
From the fan perspective, just watching you guys that entire year, I remember feeling the same way. Just anytime that the team was down, it's like they're not out of this game until the 27th out is made.
Right. It was
absolutely crazy. Yeah. So Matt, in game 1 of the World Series, you actually you recorded the win. So what I wanted to ask you about is how do you stay calm on the highest pressure stage in sports?
It's crazy. You know, part of it is like, but I only had pitched like 1 game in the postseason prior to that, right? In 16, I had 1 in Cleveland. You know, it continues to get like bigger and bigger as you go to the DS, to the CS, to the World Series. But obviously, pitching in those games prior to that kind of gives you this sense of, kind of gives you this confidence level, right? Like we weren't playing teams that had just snuck into the postseason that year to kind of to get to the World Series. Like winning the American League might have been harder than winning the World Series, right? Having to go to New York, who was a 100-win team, the Astros, who were the defending champs, and a 100-win team, and then you get to the Dodgers, who were a 100-win team. Like, I don't know how many times teams have to go through 300-win teams to win the World Series. Probably doesn't happen very often, right?
I don't think that's ever happened until that year.
So, like, the World Series in itself is obviously like a bigger stage, but the DS at home against the Yankees, like, that is like the pinnacle of like what being a Red Sox is, except for the championship series, right? Is playing in this postseason series against the Yankees. Like that is right. And then at the time we had kind of developed another mini rivalry with the Astros because it was like division champs. We played them in 17 in the postseason and lost. And then we played them again this year and we beat them. And then we were kind of like the 2 best teams in the AL for probably 3 or 4 years there, right? I mean, they sustained it longer than we did, but we had that period where both of us were really good and kind of developed this other mini rivalry. And going through those teams, you get to the World Series, and not that it was like a breath of fresh air, but it was like, okay, well, we just beat the Yankees and the Astros. Like I don't think the Dodgers are better than them. So, like, even though the Dodgers were very good that year, right? It's not a knock on the Dodgers. It was just the competition level to get to that point was so big that once you got there, you were like, now don't get me wrong. I remember being out there, or being at Fenway was probably a little more comfortable than being in LA. Like in game 1 against the Dodgers, I don't like necessarily like that game wasn't crazy to me, but like game 3, the 18 inning game, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So like game 3, I threw the 8th in LA tie ball game, top of the order. Like I remember being out there and being like, shit, like this is, and I go 3-0 to the first hitter to Jock, and I'm like, you better figure some shit out, or like we're gonna be in trouble, right? So like, I remember that being crazy out in LA for that one, but like at the end of the day, like I was just like, you know what? I'm not gonna go down walking the ballpark. Like, if I'm going to go down, you're going to get me. And I'm like, you know what? The hell with it. Here it is. Come get it. And like that, you just have to kind of switch that. Like, you don't really see the fans and hear the fans. You hear them when, like, you suck and you start getting crushed, and then they're super loud, and then it's like, golly. But yeah, I don't know. You just kind of have to go to a different place. And obviously, we had teammates who had been around, had the experience. They're all throwing the ball well. So you're like, man, I want to. It's just it kind of all plays into it.
So you pitched your ass off that entire. We're talking about the World Series, but that entire postseason series, your ERA was like 1.01 across 10 games. What came together for you, Matt, that postseason?
I don't know. I had felt pretty good all year that year. Well, with the exception of, ironically, that was 18, and a lot of people probably don't understand or know this, but so I had surgery last year on my hip, right? I had a torn labrum, and I had to have the bone shaved. That injury was initially sustained in 18. So so when we were playing the Marlins at home, and you probably don't know, I don't even probably remember this game. We were playing the Marlins at home. The second or third pitch of the inning, I rolled my ankle, my knee buckled, and my hip, the ball essentially smashed the back of my socket, and I had a shooting pain in my hip. And I was like, ow. But I was like, whatever, I'll stay in. We had a 3-run lead against the Marlins. I was like, I'll be good. And I ended up going like walk, double, bomb, give up 4 in like 6 pitches, get pulled, and we lose the game. Well, that was the game that I hurt my hip. And I pitched on it for the next 2.5 to 3 weeks until I got to the point where I physically could not go back to back because I had so much pain. That's when I stopped and didn't pitch for 3 weeks in September. It was because of that. And I think that's when I tore my labrum. But kept going, right? I rested for the 3 weeks. We didn't have the minor league ball to go on a rehab assignment, so I had 2 scheduled outings against the Orioles and the Yankees for rehab. And then they were like, and that was strictly to figure out if I could pitch in September. Because like there was a question on like, are you healthy enough to pitch? And I was like, we're going. It was fun. It was good enough. Let's go, right? And then end up pitching through September on a bum hip, and it was right. So then that all kind of comes back last year when I slipped in the mound again and whatnot. But you get to the postseason and you have adrenaline. You've got, you don't want to be the guy to let your teammates down. You strap it on and let's go. Like, you don't really feel good. You just played 162 games, and now like I'm on 5 out of 6 or 3 out of 4. Like, it don't feel good. Nothing feels good, but nobody in the postseason feels good, right? So it's at that point, it's about what's on the inside. Like, strap it on and let's go. Like, it's either going to be me or you, and I got another 30 guys in the dugout, plus the staff and whatnot, who's counting on me. We made it this far. Let's go.
Incredible guts for such a historic run. So Matt, let's transition a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about your international baseball experience. I know you played in Europe. I think you played in Asia as well.
Yep. Yeah. So in 2010 with Team USA, we played in Japan and Taiwan, which was crazy. Taiwan was cool. And then we went to Tokyo for I think it's like the collegiate, World Baseball Classic, if you will. And that was a blast. We played Tokyo, Canada, Cuba, Taiwan, Korea, maybe. And that was a blast. We ended up losing and got the silver medal. We lost to Cuba. But that was a blast. And then in 19, we were part of the first teams to go play in London against the Yankees, which was a really cool experience.
For sure. I think you'd agree that playing professional baseball in different parts of the world is super important and imperative to the growth of the sport.
Right.
And that's obviously one of the things we're trying to do here at Baseball United.
Yep.
So Matt, you were actually one of the first players to invest in our organization. What made you do that? Because surely as a successful major league player, I'm sure you were approached with a lot of investment opportunities from a lot of different angles. What struck you with our organization?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of different things. And obviously it starts before you get to know anybody at BU, right? It starts with the conceptual idea of what we're trying to do. that's kind of like the first step before you think of anything. Then you're like, okay, you're like, wow, baseball over in like Saudi and Dubai, like that sounds kind of cool, right? You're like professional baseball over there, like okay, untapped market. I'm like, I see how that, I see how this could be really exciting and really awesome as a way to grow the game further, right? And you have it in Japan and Korea and Cuba and like the whole kind of Latin America and whatnot, but like this whole like Middle East, Europe, like is really kind of untapped. So initially I was like, that's a really cool concept. And then once I got into it with Kash and John, and you start talking to these guys and see their vision and what they've already accomplished and where they want to go, the work that they're doing, it ends up becoming more of this like, this sounds like something that I would love to be involved in, right? I love the idea of what we're doing. I love the guys who were at the helm kind of running this thing. And I love the vision that they're going with, not only for the game, but for the people involved at the company level. And that was kind of how I initially got involved with them. And at that time, I was looking for things like this to kind of get involved in. And then to me, it's really cool. Like it's kind of like a legacy play. Like you look at it in 15, 20, 30 years, and like we've got this incredibly established league, and people look back and be like, yeah, they started it back in, whatever it was, back in, I don't know, 21, 22, 23, something like that. Like, and then you're like, I can look at my kid or my grandkids and be like, I was one of the first guys to help start that league. To me, that's like really cool to be able to share something like that. And to be able to kind of help grow the game internationally. And because it's, and Kash talks about it all the time. It's like, it's the bat and ball capital of the world. Like it is when you look at cricket, like the games are not very dissimilar. Like so that was kind of how I initially got involved and kind of came about to being one of the co-owners.
What's it like for you to be part of this ownership group that's filled with Hall of Famers, All-Stars, all these great players with so many great accolades that have really made such a forceful impact on our game?
That to me is one of the largest justification and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of gives it like a high level of credibility, right? And kind of what we're trying to accomplish. When you have guys who collectively have, I don't even know, 150 to 200 years, 300 years in the big leagues, whatever our collective ownership group has, right? And you've got God knows how many Hall of Famers in there. And like when you look at the level of talent and accomplishment between the lines of the ownership group, and they all have this vision and like see where we're going and want to be involved and want to be one of the people to help get us there. That to me is enormous, right? When you're a country looking in and being like, well, why do I want to be involved? Or you have another potential investor or whoever wants to get involved, right? You look at it and you're like, well, conceptually this is cool, right? But then you look at the people that are already involved, and I mean, I don't need to go down the list. I mean, we know who's involved, right? But like, you look at this list of investors who have played that many years collectively in the league, and you're like, well, I don't know more about baseball than these guys do. Like so they must see something that, right? It gives it a level of credibility that to me is really awesome. That moving forward, I think is going to be huge for us.
What we're doing here really is bigger than baseball. We say it all the time on this show. It's about creating opportunities. It's about helping kids fall in love with this game that's given all of us in this organization so much. What do you have to say on that front, Matt?
Yeah, I think, baseball has meant so much to every single one of us, right? And varying degrees of what that is. For a number of us, it was our livelihood and careers, right? Between the lines of physically playing. For others, it's fans or podcasts or covering the sport. For others, it's having conversations around a campfire over a handful of beers, having a great time, right? Like baseball means so much to so many in so many different ways that I think being able to expand that and allow others to enjoy the game that we have for so long, I think is really cool. And not just at the professional level, right? Like I know that a lot of the guys that go over there and play or played in the showcase last year were Americans or guys who had played professional baseball in America, right? But by starting to build at the ground level, obviously building the kind of high level professional league, but by being involved in the communities over there with the youth programs and getting kids to love the game from a young age and like helping them get involved in the game, whether that's equipment or fields or lessons or whatever, like to me, it's really cool that like this could eventually be. Now it's going to take some time, obviously, for those kids who kind of grow up, but like maybe it's not 95% people who play professional baseball in America. Maybe the talent level and the quality of players from the Middle East ends up being half of the league because they grew up watching VU at 5 years old and they were like, that's so cool. I want to play there one day. Right. And to me, now you build another generation of big baseball fans that play there. Right. And love the game even more. So to me, that's a really cool aspect of this that I think we have a chance to kind of develop.
In your role, Matt, what do you believe you can do to help grow the sport of baseball within our organization and help people know about the organization, know about our mission?
Yeah, I think there's a huge open line of communication between all the investors and with Kash and John and everybody involved. I think it's continuing to push the message. Obviously, it's difficult for all of us to be over there all the time, or even frankly to get out there once, right? I mean, it's a lot of travel, and Kash and John are incredible about being there and kind of boots in the ground. But I think as long as we can continue to get some guys out there, really talk about it, to push on social media, and just make it part of the normal conversation, I think that more people are going to understand what Baseball United is, what we're trying to accomplish, and the people involved, and knowing that we're doing it with, I don't know, that we're kind of doing it with a lot of passion and a lot of, and a big vision of making this grand kind of league and expanding for everybody over there.
And doing it with the right people for the right reasons.
Right. And I think that's anything, right? I mean, any kind of business venture you get into or anything that you're trying to do, when you start doing it for the wrong reasons, hardly ever does it work out, right? I mean, it's just at some point something's going to happen. And when it gets tough, you're not going to want to do that, right? You're going to hit a little speed bump and be like, God, man, I mean, we had hit a speed bump last year, right? With the having to change the dates of the showcase and had less time to kind of market it and whatnot. But because Kash and John, one, A, are great, and B, kind of talked to all of the investor group and kind of picked everybody's brains. Now you've got everybody thinking about, okay, well, how do we do this? What do you guys think? What do we want to do? And they were able to quickly pivot and still put out an incredible product with a ton of people that got visibility to, I don't know what it was, 140 households or countries or something like that. So like having the guys and the people at the top and kind of throughout the organization who share that collective vision and of where we want to go and how we want to do this, I think is really critical for what we're trying to do, especially at these early stages. I mean, right. Getting to play ball over there professionally is obviously a huge feat.
It's a once in a lifetime chance, right?
It is.
So our leadership group, led by CEO and Chairman Kash Shaikh, have a relentless desire to make this happen. What's it like being a part of that, Matt?
I think that's awesome. That's one of the biggest things that attracted me to wanting to be involved was you see the vision and you see the work that they're putting in. I mean, for guys, I think Kash has a place in Dubai, right? I mean, he's over there constantly, right? I don't know how many flights he does there, but I hope he has the points. I hope he has an Emirates card.
He's got to have the points. He's got to have the points.
but the guy's over there with this constant, and I think relentless is such a great word to describe him. This relentless vision for what he wants to accomplish for himself, for BU, for the region, right? And he really won't stop at anything. Now, obviously, when you're playing the game of politics a little bit, there are things that are kind of out of your control. But he works at such an incredible speed and pace, and his mind works in such a way that like nothing's ever out of reach, and there's always a way to do something and always a way to get it done. And he's thinking 4 steps ahead, right? Which I think is so critical in something like this. He knows where he wants to get to and where we want to get to. And you almost kind of like work backwards from that, right? And he does such an incredible job, not only of that, but kind of communicating and listening to everybody else, right? You know, sometimes you get people who are running companies or starting companies that are kind of my way or the highway, but Kash is very aware and cognizant of the people that are involved, and the investors and the co-owners, right? And the experience, and genuinely wants to know, all right, what do you guys think? This is kind of where we want to get to. This is what we're thinking about doing. What are your thoughts on that, right? So I think having that open line of communication is critical in something like this, especially when it's very difficult to get out there and be on the ground for everybody, right? Whether it's families or working or whatnot. So I think when you kind of put all of that together, Kash is the perfect person and an awesome leader to kind of help us get to where we want to get to.
So Kash just had a baby. He's running a multi-continental business. For me, at least, it's so rewarding and easy to buy into the mission, buy into the vision, and be a part of this, and really be a part of history.
Of course it is, right? I mean, like, especially being a baseball guy, right? Like, playing the game and seeing where it goes, and some of these cool rules some of the cool rules, rule changes, and the command in the field. Like, once you see the product, you're like, man, this is neat. Like, this is cool. You kind of see it, right? And it's always a lot easier to get behind somebody who's all in, right? Like, you see what they are doing, right? It's not hey, I wonder what he's doing. Like, I know we got this going on, but like, I really don't know where. Like, where are we at? And that goes back to the line of communication, right? It's like he's always telling us what's going on. Hey, we're here. We're going to do this. We got this going on, right? So you know that he's working, and I don't know how he has this much energy. And I told you at the start, like, I get almost 7-month-old. He's got a brand new baby, and this dude is still out and about, running around like crazy. It's insane. But that also goes to show you the level of confidence and dedication and hard work that this guy has to have that and to be able to, right, and then to be able to continue to pursue this, right? So, but it does. It gives you a little extra drive and a little extra kind of dedication towards it all. Matt,
any messages to the fans in the Middle East that are awaiting professional baseball?
Yeah, I would say hang with us. We are working as fast as we can and doing as much as we can to get this thing off the ground. Anytime you're starting a company from scratch, let alone introducing an entire new sport or an old sport in a new country, is obviously going to come with some challenges. But we hope to provide an incredible product and experience for everybody who comes out and everybody who watches, all the fans, and inspiration to all of the people who would love to play baseball, right? And give an avenue to help in kind of that dream of getting to that level and being able to play. So when we get back out there for some more games and kind of get everything up and running again, I know that we had it back in November, but when we get back out there playing games and have everybody there, would love for you guys to come out to the games, experience it. If you can't make it, turn it on the TV or your phone or whatnot, and tune in. And that way, the more you guys want to watch and the more you guys enjoy the games and come out and experience it, hopefully the more you fall in love with the game, and the more that we can then provide for you guys.
Matt Barnes, I appreciate your perspective. I appreciate you taking the time to join me today on the Baseball United podcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
And guys, we will see you next week. But first, if you love this podcast, if you love our mission here at Baseball United, if you love Matt, please download, like, subscribe, share this podcast with anyone you know that loves baseball. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time.